lot has changed since I've been in school. Most notably, our parents didn't have to show up to school board meetings and ask the school board, "Hey, can you not provide porn and other sexual materials to students?" That would be great. A lot has changed since I've been in school, and I've only been out of school for a little while. Graduated college in 2021, so I haven't been out of school that long. And I mean, there has been some real uh, crazy changes happening in that public education or indoctrination system that we've got going on. So I'm going to be talking about this because there was a woke school board that just cut a mother off while she was talking at this school board meeting, and she was talking about how how there was pornography on the shelves, and they cut her off. They said, "Your time's up." And then her son steps in and saves the day, and he just hammers them with reality. And I can't wait to get to this story, but first, without a doubt, I know you're aware of the increasing violent crime in our nation's cities, and just everywhere. I mean, everywhere is experiencing a rise in crime. And you've probably heard a lot about the incident in New York in this on the subway where this Marine, he put this guy in a chokehold, and this guy was homeless and he wound up dying. I've heard that they're looking at a homicide charge here for this Marine. I have no idea who the Marine is, what his name is. It's unknown as of right now. But the guy who died, his name is Jordan Neely. And people are outraged. They're saying it's race. They're saying it's racially motivated. There was a witness who said that 30-year-old Jordan Neely, he barged onto the train and started yelling at the riders, and he said that he was ready to die. He threw off his jacket, had a black jacket on, threw it off, threw it down onto the ground. He didn't have any food. He was screaming that he didn't have food and that he didn't have a drink, and that he doesn't care if he goes to jail. This is very aggressive. So then a man, being reported as a 24-year-old Marine veteran, subdued Neely by placing him in a chokehold for about 15 minutes until the police arrived. Now, the Marine was questioned by the police at first, and then they released him. And then all the outrage happened, and then all of a sudden, he gets slapped with a homicide charge. So leftists, they're trying to set a narrative here. They're saying the crime was racially motivated. Fun fact, if you look at the entire video, and this was just shocking to me. I saw CNN, MSNBC, they took a snippet of the video. They cropped the video, and you can see that a black man is actually there holding down Jordan Neely with the 24-year-old Marine veteran who's holding that homeless man in a chokehold. So they're saying that, he was just a fun-loving Michael Jackson impersonator because there's one video of him impersonating Michael Jackson on a subway. They're saying that he was an unhoused man because they don't want to say the word homeless because apparently the word homeless is also all of a sudden offensive. I had no idea. Did you know the word homeless is is offensive nowadays? I'm going to run through some facts here. So this black aggressive homeless man on a subway went berserk and was choked out by a white man. Now the leftist media is treating this situation like George Floyd 2.0, who the medical office, the autopsy said that he died of an fentanyl overdose, by the way, George Floyd. But I digress. Anyway, we're not going to talk about that today. We're talking about Jordan Neely. And would you look at that? It turns out that there were multiple people restraining Jordan Neely. And they were restraining Jordan Neely, waiting for the police to arrive. Not only multiple people, but one of those people was actually a black man who was holding down Jordan Neely while the cops came. And I have a genuine question, and please comment if you're watching via Facebook Live this morning on The Morning Buzz, or if you are watching on YouTube Live. We are back on YouTube. Screw you, YouTube. We're back. We were suspended for a week, but I've got a genuine question for you, and text it in, your answer. I'm honestly curious. Would you be confident that you could restrain a crazed homeless man who's racked up 42 arrests, might I add, for 15 minutes until the cops came without accidentally maybe choking him too hard? Or, I mean, they were trying to restrain this guy. And it's sad, and all death is sad. I'm not excited that Jordan Neely died. This is a tragedy, and it shouldn't have happened. But we're in a state, in a nation where crime is on the rise, and people are starting to take matters into their own hands because we've taken cops off of the streets, and now people feel in danger. They feel like their lives are at risk, so they are reacting to the violence that is around them. This guy should have never been out there on the streets. He has 42 arrests, and he had an active warrant out for his arrest for felonious assault, felony assault. I'm going to get to that here in just a second. But since this incident happened on the subway, there's been a rise in protests. There's been clashes with the New York Police Department. So the reason why I bring that up is because the media is now reporting half-truths and just flat-out lies. And they have created dangerous situations for not only New York Police Department officers, but bystanders. People that are just, sitting there, and then all of a sudden a protest breaks out and they get punched in the face, and this is a really terrible situation. So why do you think the white dude is guilty when there were black and brown people involved in restraining the man? There were multiple people involved in trying to get this guy down to the ground and restraining him. Do you believe race determines guilt? Does Jordan Neely's violent history even matter? Many New York Metro riders have alleged that he has violently threatened or assaulted them. So there's been a history here where he has violently threatened or assaulted New York Metro riders, people on the subway. Now, he also had a warrant, like I said, for felony assault. And, I'm just going to go on a limb here and say this. If you've been arrested 42 times and you have a standing warrant for felony assault, you're dangerous. Okay? You're dangerous. AOC's out there. She's tweeting. She says, Jordan Neely was murdered. And then she goes on in the tweet. She says, but because Jordan was houseless, because she doesn't want to say homeless because apparently that's too offensive, and crying for food in the time when the city is raising rents and stripping services to militarize itself while many in power demonize the poor, the murderer gets protective with passive headlines and no charges. So he has been charged, I think, with homicide. I think that's where we're at today. And at least that's what I'm seeing here on Fox News, New York. They said, oh gosh. So the New York City Medical Examiner's Office has been ruled a homicide. So I don't think he's been technically charged. I think you can rule it a homicide. And then I don't think he's actually been charged with anything as of yet. But AOC, she's out there tweeting houseless. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And look, I sympathize with people who are poor, right? It's sad. Poverty is sad. I sympathize with the homeless. I go to the shelter. I've gone to Salvation Army, and I've seen what a homeless population we have here in Bloomington Normal and how tragic it is. But that doesn't change the fact that he has a violent history. He was unhinged when he was on that subway. And look, raising rent, it's all your fault, AOC. It's the Democrats who continue to spend, and that drives up costs for everyone, including landlords, so they have to raise rent. Or maybe should I call them home providers? Since we're changing language and we're calling homeless people houseless, maybe I'll call the landlords home providers. So, and then she throws out this word, and I don't even think he's really been charged yet. It's kind of unclear. The medical examiner's office deemed it a homicide. I don't know if they're charging him with a homicide. I'm not a legalese person. I don't work in law enforcement, so I have no idea really how that... But point is, at the time of this tweet, he wasn't charged with anything, and there was no medical examiner office ruling of a homicide. And AOC got out there, and she says, he was murdered. Words have meaning. You can't just go around as an elected representative and say that he was murdered. There's things like manslaughter, homicide. These all have very different meanings legally, and you can't just say somebody murdered somebody when they might not have legally. Yeah, I mean, innocent until proven guilty. I mean, I just don't understand AOC here. You're disgusting, AOC. Uh, I do want to talk more about this. I have to take a break, but when we come back, I've got more on this because criminal defense attorneys are even coming out. Eric Adams has come out and said, look, we need to be careful throwing that word around, murder, because we're looking at more like manslaughter or criminally negligent homicide. So there's going to be several factors that these prosecutors take into account to determine if there was criminal liability here, because the guy was unhinged and he was on a subway threatening people and being very aggressive. So I've got that. Eric Adams actually ripping AOC for rushing to conclude that Jordan Neely was murdered. And then we're going to get to the story that I'm so excited to bring you. This woke school board cutting off a mom and then her son stepping in and saying, you know what? No way. I'm going to save the day and I'm going to hammer these losers on this board with reality, because what they're doing is they're providing porn for children to read and consume in an educational sphere. 309-451-9299. You can text in. Also, see me live in the studio on Facebook or on YouTube. I'll be back. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in to the Facebook and YouTube live. Let me know if we are on YouTube. I text, comment, let me know if you're watching on YouTube this morning. I think that we're broadcasting live from YouTube. We were suspended for a couple of days or like a week or so. So this is amazing. We have this man, 42 arrests. I'm just going to go on a limb here and say that he was not necessarily a safe guy to be around. And here's the thing. And if you look statistically, a lot of Marines, ex-Marines, veterans, they do not have crimes against that, or they don't have arrests warrants against them. That's just not typically how that situation goes. When you have somebody who has no arrests and then you have somebody who has 42 arrests, you tell me who is the criminal and who is the person saving the day. I'm just going to say that. And there were women on board, right? So, like, here's the thing. There were a bunch of men who said, you know what, we're going to hold this guy down and we're going to wait for the police to get here. And it turned ugly, right, where they might have accidentally killed the guy. I don't know. I mean, that's the way it appears in the video. It does look like he's not doing the chokehold correctly, and I'm not a military person. I have no idea how to put somebody in a chokehold, but it doesn't look like he's doing it correctly. But I want to read this. This is a comment from Jeffrey. Perhaps the Marine was in fear of his life, or perhaps he was in fear for the life of others. What do you do in that situation? If you were on the subway, or if you were on a bus, or if you were somewhere in a grocery store and somebody comes in and they start acting unhinged and, going berserk, what are you going to do in that situation? Me, being me, I would probably run and hide because that's me. I am not at all prepared to defend myself. If I had a weapon on me, most likely I wouldn't defend myself because otherwise I am defenseless. There's no way somebody of my size could have taken that guy down. So I would have been very grateful to the men on that subway for taking that guy down for me. There were women on board on the subway, more than some woke libtard that was in a restaurant and listening to the national anthem. So that was a story I did yesterday. Yeah. So she said that was the most dangerous situation that she's ever been in, was when she was in a restaurant and she was listening to the national anthem, because the restaurant plays it at noon every day, and people get up, they put their hands on their hearts and they sing the national anthem. And this woke libtard on TikTok says, I was in the most dangerous situation I've ever been in. No, I think that this was probably the most dangerous situation people have ever been in on that subway. Having somebody who has an active warrant out for their arrest for felony assault. And that's one thing I want to get to, is what felony assault is in the state of New York. It's not just, oh, you slap somebody. Oh, you slap somebody. No, 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 no. Felony assault is where you wield a weapon against somebody and you seriously injure them, and it's punishable up to 15 years in prison. This is nothing to bat an eye at. So people have already come out and talked about Jordan Neely, about how, the 42 arrests, he's probably just being arrested because he's homeless and they're arrested for just existing. No, 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 no. This guy had multiple arrests. I think 4 of them were for assault of some kind. I don't know if they were felony assaults. He has the active warrant out for his arrest for felony assault. So, yeah, this guy's not good news. And I don't know how these people jump like Al Sharpton now, of course, Al Sharpton. He's coming out and he's saying things like, oh, well, we need to consider murder charges. What? Hold on a second. Back up. You, an activist, needs to shut up until the facts are gathered by the DA. And in fact, we had Eric Adams coming out and saying that we need to have the facts before we go around throwing the word murder out there. And everyone up in arms, the lying media, AOC protesters, none of them could care 1 second less about this guy. Yep, Jordan Neely, they're all phonies just jumping on an opportunity, all phony liars. Yes, Jacqueline, thank you. I would love to ask AOC this question in person. If I had a chance to ask AOC any question ever, it would be, AOC, how many bedrooms do you have in your house, and how many do you use? Do you have a spare bedroom? Because I'm curious, would you house somebody like Jordan Neely in your home? No, nobody would. I would ask every leftist, okay, so how many homeless people do you have in your home? And are you housing them? Yeah, exactly. Crickets. Nobody is going to house a guy like this. Why? Because they're dangerous. And they're not dangerous because they're homeless. They're dangerous because they commit crimes. I'll be back. Hold on. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. It's Friday. You can text in at 309-451-9299. Now, I've got all kinds of good stories for you coming up in just a little while. We are going to get to this whole woke school board and how they cut off this mom who was just trying to talk about the pornography that her child is being exposed to and the other sexual material. I mean, school's really changed since I've been in school, and I haven't been out of school all that long, but most notably, the biggest change is probably parents having to take time out of their days to go to the school board meetings and to politely ask behind a microphone, hey, do you mind not providing my kids porn while they're here? So I'm going to be talking about that. Also, big story out of the Chicago Times, the woke reporting of Chicago Times on this matter here in Danville, which is about an hour and a half. I think it's like mainly east, a little bit south of us here in Bloomington. Normal, it's Danville, the city. Population of 30,000 people. They're already trying to say, oh, it's a downstate city and it's not really like a city and, the population isn't that big. And, they're trying to say that this ordinance where it bans the mailing and shipping of abortion pills and essentially makes the city of Danville a sanctuary city for the unborn, they're trying to downplay the fact that Danville is a city at all. So it's really interesting. There's federal statutes here that I want to talk about because these federal statutes actually give this ordinance teeth. It gives Danville the right, if not an obligation, to become a sanctuary city for the unborn. So I'm thinking that these sanctuary cities are going to start popping up nationwide because now we've got federal statute that says that you can't ship, it's prohibited to ship abortion paraphernalia, such as abortion pills, through the mail. And how do all of these abortion clinics currently exist? Well, the only way they exist is by shipping via the mail abortion pills and materials in the mail to keep their operations going. So technically, I think it's a loophole, but it's there, and it might be a stretch. I don't know. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a lawyer. But I don't know. The way I read the statute, it's pretty dang clear. It says you can't ship abortion pills via the mail. And the federal statute says that. So it really doesn't matter what Illinois law comes up with, the Reproductive Health Act, whatever. If it's not working within the confines of federal statutes, if Illinois law is not working within the confines of federal statutes, then I would say Illinois is operating illegally. That's just the way I would say that this law, the Reproductive Health Act, is not in compliance with federal statute. That's the way I read the law. I'm not an attorney. Not sure, but this is the way I read the federal statute. I'm very interested in this story. Before I took the break, I was talking a lot about Jordan Neely, who is the homeless man who was on the New York subway, and he went totally ballistic, berserk, and then eventually he was choked out by a white man, but he was held down by multiple people. They were restraining him while they were waiting for police. In fact, one of the people who were restraining him was black. So they waited 15 minutes until the cops came. And like I said, I have a genuine question. Would you be confident you could restrain a crazed man who's racked up 42 arrests, I think 4 of them being for some sort of assault? He had an active arrest warrant, a warrant out for his arrest for felony assault. Or are you confident that you could hold him for 15 minutes without killing him? Or, I don't know. I would not be the guy who holds this guy down. I would be the gal that runs and hides and cowers in the corner, and hopefully I have a gun on me, and if he gets too close, I could use a gun if he tries to engage me aggressively. But I don't know. I don't know what I would do in this situation at all. It is a very dangerous situation to be in if you were on that subway in New York. AOC's out there tweeting. She's saying Jordan Neely was murdered. He hasn't been charged with murder. The medical examiner's office has ruled it a homicide. From what I understand, I don't think he has charges against him. This is kind of new. I don't even really know the guy, the Marine who put him in the chokehold. I don't know his name. There's a lot of things we don't know about this, but AOC decided to take to Twitter, because that's what AOC does, because she's disgusting, and actually said Jordan Neely was murdered. You can't definitively say, you can't say that, because we could be looking at manslaughter. We could be looking at criminally negligent homicide. And actually, we have criminal defense attorneys now and former prosecutors suggesting that the Manhattan DA office should it choose to bring charges against the guy. We don't even really know yet if they're going to bring charges against the Marine over Jordan Neely's death that happened on Monday. Could possibly make the argument for the DA's office could be looking at manslaughter or criminally negligent homicide. There's been prosecutors, former prosecutors, and defense attorneys looking at this and saying, we're looking at manslaughter or criminally negligent homicide here. So there's going to be several factors taken into account before prosecutors determine if there was anything criminal. For example, one of the factors they might consider is that this guy had 42 arrests, one being an active arrest warrant for felony assault. And I'm just going to read what felony assault is in the state of New York. Assault in the first degree is what he was actively arrested for. Occurs when you intentionally cause serious physical injury to another person using a dangerous weapon or instrument. This is a serious violent felony, which is a Class C felony in the state of New York and can be punished up to 15 years in jail. So we've got Al Sharpton out there, of course, and he was, losing his mind, and he's calling for murder charges for killing this homeless man or manslaughter charges. And he's out there screaming along AOC. But I want to point this out. Even the mayor, Eric Adams, has ripped the elected official, AOC, for, we've got AOC here saying, murdered. He was murdered. And when clearly he was not, possibly was not, Eric Adams, he slammed AOC for making this claim, and she really has no idea what she's talking about. That's essentially what he said. But here we go. Here's Eric Adams and what he had to say about AOC, saying that Jordan Neely was murdered.
So one of the reasons that this story is really hitting a nerve is because this man appeared to be having mental health issues. This is something that you've talked a lot about. But I want to read to you, this is a response from the comptroller, Brad Lander. He tweeted this: New York City is not Gotham. We must not become a city where mentally ill human can be choked to death by a vigilante without consequence. There's also this from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Democratic Congresswoman. She said, Jordan Neely was murdered. What is your response to what they're saying here?
Well, both the Congresswoman and the controller is a citywide leader. And I don't think that's very responsible at the time where we're still investigating the situation. Let's let the DA conduct his investigation with the law enforcement officials. To really interfere with that is not the right thing to do. And I'm going to be responsible and allow them to do their job and allow them to determine exactly what happened here.
There you have it. Eric Adams himself coming out and saying, you might not want to say that right away. If you were on a subway and a crazy person started screaming and acting completely unhinged, what would you do? Would you wait until he went after you and assaulted you very, very seriously? No. And also, I want to point this out. AOC, if you're so upset about him being unhoused, because she doesn't want to use the word homeless, if you're so upset about him being unhoused and poor, and if you think we're all demonizing the poor because we want this guy off the streets for his 42 arrests, I would like to know if you're willing to open up your spare bedroom. Are you willing to house this guy, AOC? Of course you aren't. Because it's all hypocrisy, folks. On the other side, this is The Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for joining me. You can see me live in the studio on Facebook or on YouTube. We're back there. You can also text in at 309-451-9299. It's the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for joining me here on a Friday. Yes, it is Friday. I love Fridays. Fridays are so fun. Are you headed into work today? It is 6:56. It's going to be a beautiful day. Beautiful day. Yesterday it was like highs in the 70s. I think it's going to be a bit cooler today, but not by much. It was a gorgeous day yesterday. So, firefighters, get this story. I like doing these nice news stories, the happy news stories for your Fridays. About a week ago, we've got a bear who wandered into this little neighborhood in Nevada, and he climbed up a tree, this bear, in front of a home. And it seems the bear was spooked by the busy roads and all the people hanging around. Of course, all the people hanging around were also spooked by the bear. It was a scary situation for everyone involved. I've never seen a bear in real life. I'm very excited. I hope that this summer I'm going to travel a little bit out west. I might be taking a break this summer. At some point, we're trying to plan a vacation. I would love to go out west and actually see a bear. I think that'd be pretty cool. Me being the adventurous, crazy person that I am. But of course, all the people hanging around, they were scared by the bear, and the bear was scared of them. So it was a very scary situation for everybody. But some experts from the Nevada Department of Wildlife worked with the Reno. This is the neighborhood Reno. It's the Reno Fire Department to try to solve this problem. The bear experts teamed up with the firefighters to tranquilize the bear and safely catch it in a tarp. So, after a quick exam, the 150-pound black bear was tagged, collared, and hauled into a truck. And after she woke up, the Nevada Department of Wildlife was able to put her back in better bear habitat away from neighborhoods and busy roads and all the people hanging around. So this is kind of a neat news story where it ended up okay. I think there was a story, I don't know if it was a bear, happened like 20 years ago. I forget exactly where it happened, where a tiger was roaming around. I'll have to pull that, but that story kind of reminds me of what happened here locally, where a tiger was roaming around and people were all freaked out. I don't think it ended as good as it did for the tiger about 20 years ago. I'll pull that story and I'll remind you of that story here. Coming up in just a little bit, we're going to be talking about a woke school board and how a son actually saves the day and stands up for his mom, who was cut off by a school board. So that's really funny. I was talking about that bear story. So actually, it happened in Illinois. The police shot a Bengal tiger that escaped from its owner when she was uh, at a truck stop. So this was a 400-pound tiger, and it was in Bloomington. So a veterinarian in central Illinois here unsuccessfully tried to tranquilize this 8-foot long tiger 4 times before the police actually had to kill it. So that story didn't end up as good as the bear story in Nevada. So wanted to talk about that a little bit. We are going to be getting to this woke school board. Um, this is a real interesting story because we've got a kid. I think that the story here is that this kid stands up for his mother in this situation, and that's what the story is. You know, we see parents all the time. They're standing up to school boards saying, "Hey, can we not provide porn and other sexual materials to students while they're at school?" And what's really sad is this woke school board, they just cut off this mom, and the son steps in and saves the day and just says, "Look, here's your dose of reality. Open up your mouth. I'm going to shove it in." Um, but he made an amazing point. So we're going to talk about that coming up in just a little bit. Also, the Chicago Times, the story, they're doing some woke reporting of this city council in Danville, Illinois, which is about an hour and a half from here, east central Illinois. So they did approve this ordinance. And what it does, it essentially bans the mailing and shipping of abortion pills. But actually, this ordinance at the city level is just kind of in compliance with this federal state statute, or this federal statute that already exists. Now, there's Illinois law. It's called the Illinois Reproductive Health Act or whatever, that was signed by Governor J.B. Pritzker. And I don't know, not like an attorney or anything, but to me, if I'm an Illinois legislator, I think I have to operate within the confines of federal law and federal statute. I can't just create laws that go against directly federal law. So there is some state statute that talks about the mailing of abortion pills and abortion paraphernalia, and they say that that is prohibited, um, which is really interesting. And, you know, this comes as Governor Gavin Newsom in California is stockpiling drugs and essentially becoming a drug dealer. He's stockpiling drugs not approved by the FDA, and he's selling them to other states because a federal judge ruled against a different abortion drug. So I gotta pull that up. The FDA has not approved, I think, the drug that he is stockpiling. Hang on. I think it's misoprostol. See, and they're not like abortion pills because it's supposed to be taken. There's two pills that you're supposed to take, and one of the pills, um, mifepristone. So there was a judge that blocked mifepristone. And what Governor Gavin Newsom has done is that he is now stockpiling this drug. It's called misoprostol or something like that. So actually, the FDA is saying that um, you have to take both of those as a regimen. So hold on. Yep, there we go. Okay, and okay. So I've got this all lined up here. So I'm going to share the screen with you folks if you're watching live, and be sure to comment, be a part of the show. It helps. Um, so here we have, and I'm just going to share this with you. Here we go. So here we have, this is a Texas judge, but there was a judge um, in California, I believe, who blocked, yes, here we go, an extremist judge seeking to block mifepristone, a critical abortion pill. Governor Gavin Newsom announced that California has secured an emergency stockpile of up to 2 million pills of misoprostol, a safe and effective medication abortion drug. Now, this, of course, is from the governor's website. I'm going to get into the FDA approvals of these drugs and how he is actually stockpiling a drug not approved by the FDA for abortion. And it's interesting. It's quite interesting. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299. They're trying to make this this Floydapalooza part 2. I'm telling you right now, the media is trying to make this George Floyd 2.0 when it comes to this New York City subway and this homeless man, Jordan Neely, acting completely berserk on the subway And this Marine, he's a veteran, he decides to take him down, hold him in a chokehold. Multiple people were holding him down while he was in a chokehold, and they were waiting for the police. And here's my thing. We all know, we're well aware of the increased violent crime in our cities. And I just want to ask you today, and throw it in the comments if you're watching the Morning Buzz on Facebook Live or on YouTube Live. If you're watching there, throw it into the comments, text me. What would you do in this situation? Would you wait around to see what the crazy homeless man does on the subway? Or would you do everything you can to take the guy down and ensure that your life is not taken? So the victim's name was Jordan Neely, and it's sad. I mean, anybody dying is sad. But the guy had 42 arrests, folks, and he had an active warrant out for his arrest for felony assault. And I described to you that felony assault is where you cause serious physical harm to someone with a weapon. You wield the weapon against them, and it's punishable. It's a class C felony where it's punishable up to 15 years in prison. So this isn't like I punched you in the face thing. This is like you hurt somebody. You physically hurt somebody very, very seriously. And the left is out there. They're saying that this was racially motivated. They're saying that the victim was just a fun-loving Michael Jackson. And look, that could be further from the truth. There were multiple people restraining Jordan Neely. There was a black man who was holding him down for 15 minutes until the cops came. They're calling this guy a vigilante. And really what I think was going on, according to the video, what I think was going on was that he was trying to either A, protect himself or others who were on that subway. Don't know the Marine's name. We don't know if there's charges. The medical examiner, this is the most recent news I've got about it. The medical examiner's office deemed it a homicide. Don't know if he's going to have some sort of charges brought against him. But of course, AOC and Al Sharpton, they're calling for murder charges. And we even have Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, coming out and saying, whoa, pump the brakes there. We can't say that it's murder charges quite yet. We got to listen to the DA on this one. Yeah, you can't go around saying people committed murder when you have to take into account many other factors, because we could consider it manslaughter. We could consider it criminally negligent homicide. There's legal definitions for this kind of stuff. Do want to shift gears, want to talk this morning about this woke school board. This was really interesting. It's a viral clip. This mother, she gets cut off, which is pretty, par for the course, I guess, when it comes to parents going up and showing up at these, going up to these school boards and asking them, hey, board, please don't provide porn to my kids while they're at school. It's pretty common for people to get cut off at the microphone. And this son, the mother's son, was not having it. So he steps in, saves the day, and he just hammers them with reality, opens up their mouth, serves them a nice hot piping dose of reality. And I want to talk about that. The reporting of the Chicago Times, too, here. Want to talk about that. The city of Danville, which is a population of 30,000 people, and it's in east central Illinois. It's not downstate like a lot of these woke media, this legacy media like Chicago Times is reporting. They've reported now, quote, with a wave of recent medication abortion court rulings in national spotlight, the city council in downstate Danville narrowly approved the controversial ordinance that bans mailing and shipping of abortion pills, despite repeated warnings from civil liberties experts, okay, the ACLU, and leaders, state leaders, that it violates Illinois law. Okay, first, who here thinks Danville, raise of hands, who here thinks Danville is downstate? It's not. It's in east central Illinois. It's not downstate. They like to do that because they're like, oh, look at, it's a bunch of Southerners who are just outraged about women having bodily autonomy. No, that's not the case. This is east central Illinois, and it's a population of 30,000 people. They're trying to downplay the fact that the city of Danville is actually a city, and that they have the power to pass ordinances like this. So this ordinance isn't symbolic. It's not, it's real. and it actually is backed up by federal statutes. And I'm excited. And I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to the mayor of Danville for using his elected representation to make the city of Danville a sanctuary city for the unborn. And I think that this is going to be on the rise. And I hope that more cities start to do this, because you can. It's despite what the Attorney General says, Governor J.B. Pritzker says, you can, because there's federal statute that kind of backs you up here. So I want to get into that here. First, let's talk about the Woke School Board. So a lot has changed since I've been in school. I never experienced parents showing up at my school board meetings and asking the school board, hey, can we not provide porn to the kids while they're here at school? Now, this clip, it might be missing like some context here, because it is missing some context because it doesn't tell you what the mother was talking about while she was allowed to speak. It doesn't talk about the specific issue, but I mean, I think we've seen enough of these videos, enough of these parents speaking out, that we can fill in the blanks here. She was talking about pornography being on the shelves at the library, and I'm sure she was reading from a book that was very sexually explicit. And I just wanted to pull this story because I think the focus here is on her son saving the day and the point that this boy actually made while he was there. So if you're watching live, you can see the video on Facebook. Do want to play it here for you. This student is sticking up for his mom at a school board meeting. Here we go.
I didn't use all my 3 minutes at my first comment. So I would just like to say that
it's one. I'm sorry. It's one. You have one chance at your 3 minutes.
that
What do you want to say?
I just want to say that if you, as a student, were to Google any of these things,
Jacob Bennick. If this is Google on our Chromebooks, typed on our Chromebooks, searched on our Chromebooks, it's immediately flagged. You block us from consuming this content on our Chromebooks because it's not something children should be consuming in a school environment, or frankly at all. But then you leave it available to us in our libraries for students to freely read. That's a double standard that I don't think should be in schools. None of this should be in our schools, and we're not gaining any educational learning. There's no educational value to any of this in our libraries. I think you guys understand that. This should not be in our libraries. This should not be available to students.
And the people that are sitting there saying that these books can corrupt their children are the ones making our victims feel so ashamed.
Hey,
Excuse
order,
me.
Order.
This are my comments.
Order.
No, excuse me.
Order.
These are my comments.
Wow.
Mr.
Okay.
Cicillo, I move to adjourn.
Okay. So you get the picture here, folks. The dude's right, okay? The kid's right. If a student were to Google, quote, and I'm just going to, it's PG-13, so look, folks, I'm just going to say what is in these books that are already in the book, are already on the school shelves, right? The school library shelves. I'm just going to be repeating what's in these books. Okay, so if it's appropriate for these books to have this language in there and for your kids to read it at school, then it's got to be appropriate for me to tell you about it here this morning. So if kids were to Google, quote, tasting yourself, or, quote, proper techniques in giving a hand job, or, quote, whether to spit or lube while performing anal sex, the student would be blocked from viewing it on school computers. It's true. If you are at school, you cannot Google this stuff. Yet, if a progressive author writes a book on it, especially if that progressive author checks off one or more of the left's preferred marginalized groups, if this author checks off boxes, not only is it appropriate for students, but it's also recommended reading. The feeling among these grown adults who determine that what your child is taught at school is that a student can't be expected to learn how to be tolerant of other genders without reading a graphic novel that discusses, quote, vagina slime. Yes, that's a quote from the genderqueer book that I know is in the libraries everywhere. So these adults determine what your child is taught, and they have this feeling that if your kid doesn't read about this stuff in graphic novels, that they aren't going to be tolerant of other genders. And that's just so far from the truth. You don't need to read about porn. You don't need to read porn in order to be tolerant of other genders, right? You can teach tolerance without shoving pornography down the throats of babes. If a parent has a problem with it, the parent has a problem with it. You know, I just don't understand where we've started to demonize parents because they have a problem with pornography in schools, but we're not demonizing the Democrat Party and how they are so frantically obsessed with trying to sexualize students at every opportunity while they're captive. They are a captive audience at that school. Why are they obsessed with sexualizing kids? Shout out to this young kid here, coming to his mom's defense. Okay, want to shift gears here. Want to talk about the Chicago Times, the reporting of this Danville city. It's a city of 30,000 people. It's a pretty big population. And fun little fact, a majority of cities are actually like of a smaller population, something like 50,000 people, 30,000 people. It's very rare. There's only a few cities, right, that have millions of people in them. So this is a majority of the country when we're talking about cities, right? Danville is a pretty common city. So Danville, they approved this controversial, at least this is how the Chicago Times reports it, it's a controversial ordinance that bans the mailing and shipping of abortion pills, with a wave of recent medication abortion court rulings in national spotlight, as if that's the reason why they passed it. That's not the reason why the city council passed it. It's not because there's national news about these abortion pills and these court rulings. That's not why. The reason why is because there's standing federal statute that's on their side, and they want to abide by the federal statutes. I would imagine that's why it passed. Now, there was a tie-breaking vote casted by the mayor of Danville, so I'm sure he is getting a talking to put it lightly, from these leftist crazy people. But they did this despite many people from the ACLU, civil liberties experts, and state leaders that this ordinance violates Illinois law. So it was a 4-hour meeting, and there were hundreds of people there. I talked to somebody who was there. He said that the people in attendance, about 80% of them were for the ordinance, not against the ordinance that makes Danville a sanctuary city for the unborn. Let's first talk about the Chicago Tribune, their leftist language here, medication abortion rulings. They're, of course, talking about Governor Newsom. He is currently stockpiling, and I'm going to share my information here with you. He is stockpiling drugs, and then he's selling them to other states. That's a drug dealer. So Governor Gavin Newsom has announced that California has secured an emergency stockpile of up to 2 million pills of misoprostol, a safe and effective medication abortion drug, in wake of this extremist judge seeking to block mifepristone, a critical abortion pill. So here's the thing. Mifepristone has to be taken with misoprostol. At least that's according to the FDA. So a regimen, a concoction, a combination of mifepristone followed by misoprostol, a drug that is also used to treat ulcers, manage miscarriages, induce labor, and assist in IUD insertions, is an FDA-approved protocol for abortion during the first 70 days or up to 10 weeks after the first day of the pregnant person's last menstrual period. So a regimen of mifepristone and misoprostol has been approved by the FDA. However, misoprostol is not approved by the FDA alone for abortion. The FDA has not approved misoprostol in solidarity to take by itself and for abortion. It is not. It's not FDA approved. So we've got a judge blocking it. the mifepristone, removing access to mifepristone. That's this judge, a federal judge, has determined that it's not safe, and they said, hey, we're going to be blocking this. And what does Governor Gavin Newsom do? He acts as a drug dealer and starts selling these drugs to other states, and he's stockpiling a drug that's not approved by the FDA in solidarity, right? Misoprostol is not approved by the FDA for abortion. And he's selling it to people, and he's stockpiling it. So here in the Chicago Times, they say that it's medication abortion. No. This is chemical abortion, and it's a blend of drugs used to expel a baby from his or her home, the uterus. That's what these pills do. These drugs do. It's not medication. This is drugs that are used to expel a baby. Let's just be as accurate as possible here. Now, the reason why they passed this ordinance, and I'm sure what led to this ordinance being passed, there are federal statutes. It's called the Comstock Act, and it broadly prohibits sending abortion drugs by U.S. mail or common carrier. So there's a section here under Title 18. It's Section 1461, Section 1462. And what it does, it bans or it prohibits sending abortion drugs via the mail and common carrier. So what that does is it effectively bans abortion federally because these abortion clinics can't operate without getting their materials via the mail. So if you go to an abortion clinic, Planned Parenthood or something, they have a bunch of materials, paraphernalia, abortion drugs that they give to people when they come in for an abortion. And likely they get all of that via the mail, or at least most of it via the mail. So that is how they will be able to effectively shut down the operations of abortion clinics in the city of Danville, because this ordinance complies with federal statute. Now, there's Attorney General Kwame Raoul. He's saying that this is illegal in Illinois, and he has urged the city to reject the measure. But look, you can't create Illinois law. The reproductive health in and of itself, I don't think, is in compliance with federal statute. You have to work as a legislator within the confines of federal statute because we are a United States. You can't just go rogue and create laws that are against federal statutes, against federal law. I love it. I got to take a break. 309-451-9299. I'll be back. I'm very excited. This is the Morning Buzz. It's a Friday. I'll be back on the other side. Today's Cinco de Mayo day. Did you guys know that? Are you guys going to be getting some tacos and tequilas today? Tacos, tequila. I'll be back here on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for joining me here on the Morning Buzz. I so do appreciate it. Let me know where you're watching from. Are you watching on Facebook? Are you watching on YouTube? Throw it in the comments. Now, this is important because this is the FDA approval of a regimen, a combination of misoprostol or mifepristone and misoprostol. I don't know if I'm saying those right. My pronunciation might be wrong, but there's the spelling for you, David Paul. David Paul was texting in and he was asking for the spellings of those two drugs. But yes, so the regimen of mifepristone followed by misoprostol. So I'm not a doctor. I'm going to vaguely explain how these drugs work. So mifepristone is something that blocks your hormones. It's a puberty. It's almost like a puberty blocker, right? It's a hormone blocker, and it stops your production of progesterone that keeps the fetus or the baby. It keeps the baby it keeps it living, right? Because when you get pregnant, your body starts to produce a hormone that helps the baby feed, and it continues the pregnancy, and it allows the baby to grow. There's a hormone, it's called progesterone, and you start to get a lot of it once you're pregnant. So what mifepristone does is it blocks that from continuing to produce. Then what you're supposed to do in order to have an effective abortion, at least approved by the FDA, take misoprostol, and what that does, it expels the baby, and you will have effectively something that resembles a miscarriage. It's very sad, very traumatic. If you've talked to anybody who's gone through a chemical abortion, it's a very traumatic experience because you're not only literally expelling something from your body, but you are also blocking a hormone that your body is trying to produce. And you go through all kinds of emotions when that hormone is blocked and your body is fighting to try to produce that hormone, but there's a chemical inside your body that blocks you from producing that hormone. So the two work in tandem together, and that is approved by the FDA for abortion. However, now that a judge has blocked mifepristone, and I'm sure there's a multitude of reasons why this judge blocked mifepristone, what Governor Gavin Newsom has now done is he's stockpiled over 2 million pills of misoprostol, which is not approved by the FDA in and of itself for abortion. It has to work in tandem with the other drug. Misoprostol, right? This drug he's stockpiled, and he is now selling it to other states. He's effectively a drug dealer. Governor Gavin Newsom is a drug dealer, and he's selling this drug, not approved by the FDA, to other states for women to go expel their baby unsafely. So at least that's according to the FDA, not me. It's not approved by the FDA. Misoprostol in and of itself to expel a baby. So yeah, this is what's going on. There's court rulings. There's all kinds of things, but this is a separate issue, what's going on in the city of Danville, because in the city of Danville, they're working off of these two federal statutes, and these two federal statutes say that you cannot ship abortion paraphernalia through the mail. I will copy and paste the federal statutes here for you. I want you to look them up on your own. I have the primary resource here. I took the statutes, I read it. I'm not a lawyer, but from the way I understand it, it's pretty clear to me. And this is probably going to amp up. I foresee lots of cities trying to become a sanctuary city for the unborn. But this is the federal criminal statutes refer to it as Comstock Act, broadly prohibits sending abortion drugs by U.S. mail or by common carrier. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299. Yes, oh yes, there has been so much news out there. Now, there's talk about this new study. I do want to get to this new study. It's kind of interesting. It says that marijuana use may actually cause 30% of schizophrenia cases in men. So this is really interesting. I'm going to be talking about this study. It's a brand new study, and it talks about how marijuana use may actually cause 30% of the schizophrenia cases in men. I do want to talk about that coming up in just a little bit. Now, we have been talking a lot about the subway incident in New York. Now, the violent crime, there's no question, without a doubt, I'm sure you're aware of the increased violent crime in our nation's cities, including New York, and you've probably heard about the recent incident in New York City on the subway where a Marine put this guy in a chokehold and the homeless man died. He was a homeless man and he died. This homeless man, Jordan Neely, he had 42 arrests and he had an active warrant for his arrest. This active warrant was, in fact, for felony assault. Felony assault, defined by New York City, is where you physically injure another person by using a dangerous weapon or instrument and you intentionally cause serious harm. This is a very serious violent felony. It's a Class C felony, and in the state of New York, you could be punished up to 15 years in jail. We've got AOC out there. She's tweeting. She's talking about how, this houseless person, because apparently homeless is just too offensive, how this houseless person was murdered. She came out and said the word murdered. And this is dangerous because this guy has not been charged with murder. Okay. Now, the medical examiner's office has deemed this a homicide. I haven't seen any charges brought up against him yet, but there have been prosecutors and defense attorneys, people within the Manhattan DA's office, saying that this could be manslaughter or criminally negligent homicide. So there's several factors we got to take into account before we start throwing around the word murder. But of course, AOC, being as disgusting as she is, she doesn't care, right? That she just throws the word murder out there. So we've been talking a lot about that. Coming up in just a little bit, we are going to be talking about the new study coming out saying that marijuana, the use of marijuana could actually be causing 30% of schizophrenia cases in men. So causing some schizophrenia. Yikes. But before we go there, I did want to talk a little bit about how it's college graduation time. And when it comes to lessons learned, it seems there is one thing that most college students wish they had learned in college. How to handle their finances. You don't say. So when you graduate college, the college student is like, I can't go out to Starbucks and buy all of the coffees that I want, and I can't go paint my nails, and I can't, you can't do all of these things if you don't have money. You have to manage your finances. You can't just throw everything on credit, okay? Wow, shocker that college students actually wanted to learn how to handle their finances. A new survey found that 81% of college graduates said that they had wished they learned more about life skills while they were in college. Like financial skills on how to invest, long-term financial planning, how to budget, and how to manage their student loan debt. Oh, gosh. Even some college grads said that they want to learn how to cook or do their laundry. And 26% in this survey said that they felt lost when it came to basic home maintenance, like unclogging a toilet or resetting a Wi-Fi router. That's insane. I believe it, because when I was in school, and I'm not going to say it, she was a very nice woman. She was my college roommate. And when I first met her, she had no idea how to pump her own gas. So we were at a gas station and she was like sitting at the pump for a while. And I rolled down the window and I was like, hey, you okay out there? And she goes, yeah, I don't know how to pump gas. And I was like, what? Mind you, she's like 20. And I was like, I've never encountered anybody at the age of 20 who doesn't know how to pump gas. So, of course, I taught her. So I had to teach a 20-year-old woman how to pump gas at the age of 20. I was 20 myself. And I mean, this is so, it speaks volumes about this generation. 309-451-9299. You can be a part of the show by texting in to 309-451-9299, or you can see me live in the studio on Facebook or on YouTube. Up next, Scott Robbins. It's Scott's Takes. Dr. Jill Biden. You guys better not say.
Jill.
Look, you have to say Dr. Jill Biden. I would hope that she would be able to help him, tuck him in at night and get him his
Yeah, right. Well, apparently,
get him his
she's
cough medicine at night.
she's going to be representing the U.S. At the big coronation of Prince Charles. So we usually that's something the president would attend, right? If not the president, the vice president. Now you don't want to send the vice president there. That's an unmitigated disaster waiting to happen. At least the handlers can sometimes rein in Joe. But Joe doesn't want to make the trip. That's a long trip, Kat. It's hard at his age to do something like that. So
Yeah.
So Dr. Jill's going in his place. Now, hopefully, she won't try to fake out an English accent when she gets there.
Yeah, what is that with all of the Democrats? And they do this code switching, Scott Robbins.
They do it all the time. It's so fun. It's so ridiculous, too. I mean, if Meryl Streep does it, she gets paid for it, right? In a movie. Yeah, I mean, you can take a Yugoslavian accent, and she's got it. She can nail it. But it's for a movie. No, what did she say? Cisse Podway or whatever she did.
Cisse Podway.
Podway. Remember that? That was wasn't that Cinco de Mayo last year?
Yeah, hold on. Let me try to find
she
it.
She called them Mexican tacos. I mean, just embarrassing stuff, right? So I don't know if she's going to suggest tea and crumpets this go around. I have no idea what she's going to do.
Okay, I think that this is the clip. I'm not.
The Cisse Podway. Okay,
Cisse Podway. Well, she
this is-
compares Latinos to breakfast tacos.
breakfast tacos, which is always good. Yeah, okay.
Here we go.
All right.
Can't get those things on our own. Raul helped build this organization with the understanding that the diversity of this community, as distinct as the Bogotas of the Bronx, as beautiful as the blossoms of Miami, and as unique as the breakfast tacos here in San Antonio,
Yeah, that's an uneasy feeling right there.
is your strength. And yet, it's when you speak with one voice, unidos, that you find your power. Thanks to the hard work of you and advocates across the country,
Yeah.
we have torn down so many barriers that kept Latinos out of our seats of power.
Dang it, it's not that. But she does say Cisse Podway. I don't know
Podway.
where it is.
Yeah, it's somewhere, but that was part of the whole
there she is,
spiel,
yeah.
right? The breakfast tacos. And you heard the uneasiness from the audience, like, ooh, jeez. I don't know about that. I don't know which couch fabric dress she's going to have on, but it'll be one of them that'll look very lovely, I'm sure. Jill Biden on her way.
The tablecloth that she's wearing.
Well, she likes that. Yeah, she said it's an honor to represent the U.S. and blah 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 and on it goes. Right. So we got that going for us. Also, other news today, and there is a lot here. Can I talk just a minute? You've been talking about this all morning, and it certainly is the hot topic on all the national yapper shows in the morning. Today's show, Good Morning America, at all. Right? Is this subway killing that took place? So this guy, and by the way, they're already doing this. They did it. They do it all the time. They found video of him dancing like Michael Jackson. Just a kid out there working hard for a living, kind of thing. So they set the stage. The guy was obviously mentally ill. When I say obviously, it was everybody on that subway knew what was going on, and apparently he was threatening to off himself, I guess, and off other people, because he didn't care if he went to jail or not, blah, blah, blah. I mean, again, it's very sketchy. You're getting bits and pieces, dribs and drabs of whatever happened. Well, there was a threat, or a perceived threat, to the people that were on that subway. And this guy, this ex-Marine, takes the guy down and puts him in a chokehold. And other people, I guess, 2 other people jumped in then and were holding him down until authorities could get there and do away with and take him away to wherever they take him away to in New York.
Yeah, and according
Probably-
to the video,
Probably to
Scott,
a Yankee game.
the multiple people holding him down, one man was black.
You're right.
One man was actually
black.
black who was holding him down.
Sorry, I
Uh-huh.
got a terrible cold. I'm trying to work my way through this. But at any rate, so this happens, right? And, of course, the guy dies. while in the chokehold. Now, again, that's very unfortunate. That's a terrible thing to have happen. Now, of course, immediately upon hearing that, the squad goes into whatever the squad does, and that is to stir up as much racial tension as possible. They do that immediately. They don't know anything. They know nothing about the circumstances. They don't know anything. They just know a black guy was killed after being subdued from a violent act on a subway in New York City. So they do what they do best, and that is nothing but stir racism, division. That's what they do. They do this all the time. Ilhan Omar, AOC, Presley, the whole bunch of them. That's what they do. They don't do anything else. This is what they do. They scream racism every time. There's a boogeyman under every bed. And in their world, that's what they do because it gets them attention and the desired results. That's why they do it. We don't know if it's founded, unfounded, or not. What we do know is the guy wasn't arrested, or hasn't been yet anyway. And we also know that Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, wanted to tamp that down a little bit, going, hey, wait a minute, we don't know anything yet, right? And I know you've got that clip, but this is Eric Adams, and I don't agree with Eric Adams hardly at all, but this is the mayor of New York talking about the reaction on the whole thing. Here we go.
So one of the reasons that this story is really hitting a nerve is because this man appeared to be having mental health issues. This is something that you've talked a lot about, but I want to read to you. This is a response from the comptroller, Brad Lander. He tweeted this: New York City is not Gotham. We must not become a city where mentally ill human can be choked to death by a vigilante without consequence. There's also this from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Democratic congresswoman. She said, Jordan Neely was murdered. What is your response to what they're saying here?
Well, both the congresswoman and the controller is a citywide leader. And I don't think that's very responsible at the time where we're still investigating the situation. Let's let the DA conduct his investigation with the law enforcement officials. To really interfere with that is not the right thing to do. And I'm going to be responsible and allow them to do their job and allow them to determine exactly what happened here.
That's pretty simple. Let them do their job. Let them determine. And it's irresponsible. And it is. But this is the type of stuff they do all the time. One other thing I thought of during this, there is a lot of condemnation of people who simply see things happen and walk by or do nothing. And they're labeled as cowards.
Yeah.
A bunch of cowards. They didn't know. Nobody tried to stop this from happening. Now, I'm not saying that cowardice doesn't come into it. But what I will say is it's stuff like this that would make you think twice about getting yourself involved in something, even though you know it's the right thing to do. Now, and again, I don't know the situation here. Nobody does, right? I'm just going on what we know so far. But if this guy had it to do all over again, this Marine, do you think he would have just let it go? No. I mean, if he knew that he was going to be facing potential murder charges over this?
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, this allows everyone a free pass. If you see something happening, I don't want to get involved in that crap because it's going to come down on me. I mean, it's going to come down on me. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to end up in jail over this. And again, is the mental health crisis real in this country? It absolutely is. Absolutely it is. I mean, are there resources available to handle it all? Doesn't seem to be. Doesn't seem to be at all. But does that mean because you're mentally ill that you're just allowed to do whatever you want, whenever you want, to whomever you want? Of course not. Of course not. Now, you can say, well, the person was out of their minds, and that's why they did what they did. I'll make an argument that most people that commit heinous crimes are probably out of their minds.
Yeah. Guy should have been locked up. Somebody somewhere should have said, look, this guy needs to be either in a mental health institution and a semi-permanent basis or needs to be locked up and thrown in prison. Guy had 42 arrests.
Yeah, I mean,
not one, not two.
There's no reason this guy's not in jail. No reason, right? I mean, again, is he mentally ill? Yes, he probably is. Most people who commit crimes are mentally ill on some level anyway. But you can't forgive it or just let it go because of that. But I also understand the apprehension. I mean, the trying to apprehend someone if they're committing a crime and then somehow something crazy like this happens, or they get hurt or something else, and all of a sudden you're the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I completely understand. I don't agree with it. I still think I would intervene if given the situation like that. But I tell you what, I'd think twice about it. All right, Cat Mandu, have a good day.
Yeah, you have a great day. Have a great weekend, Scott Robbins.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, your parents' anniversary, your wedding anniversary, is that correct?
Yes, they've been married a very long time. They've been
I
very
saw your mom's post on Facebook today. Well,
Yeah.
tell them happy anniversary from me.
Happy anniversary,
Anniversary.
from Scott Robbins. I'm sure
That's
they're
right.
listening. They've
Well, if they-
married a long time.
Yeah, they have been married a long time. You can see it in their faces.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. See, that's a joke. I don't. I mean, they look very happy. Look very happy. And I've often said this. Everybody should do it once, right?
Everybody
There you
should
go.
at least do it once.
One time. Yeah. All right. Talk to you later. See ya.
See you later,
All right,
Scott
all right,
Robbins.
bye.
Signing off, Scott Robbins. This has been Scott's Takes. It happens around 7:35, Monday through Friday. We'll be back on the other side. This is The Morning Buzz. Okay, we'll be back here coming up in just a little bit. I'll go ahead and get to some comments if you guys have them. We will be talking about this a little bit more, the New York City subway. That's all the buzz right now. And without a doubt, I know you're aware of the increasing violent crime in our cities. And you've probably heard a lot about this incident. Scott Robbins and I just talking about it. But look, we don't know a whole lot about it. The medical office did rule it a homicide. That doesn't mean he's going to be charged with homicide. Doesn't mean that he's a murderer or anything like that. We don't even know the guy's name. He's a Marine veteran and he subdued Jordan Neely, who is a black man, homeless, and he placed him in a chokehold and he was waiting until police arrived. Now, it wasn't just the Marine veteran who subdued him. There were multiple people who were restraining Jordan Neely while they were waiting for police to arrive. So I'll be talking about that here in just a little bit. Then also, I do want to get to this kid who came to his mother's defense at the school board meeting. This woke school board shut down a mom who was trying to say, hey, no, please don't put porn on the shelves of the school libraries. Don't expose my child to pornography. And they cut her off. They said that she couldn't talk anymore. And then the son actually said, you know what? This is not right. Stood up, came to his mother's defense, and said, look, this has no educational value. The pornography that is on the shelves right now has no educational value. And he just served them a hot piping dose of reality. So I want to talk about that here coming up in just a little bit. in just a little bit, we are going to be talking about the New York City homeless man who was acting completely berserk, and somebody restrained him, put him out in a chokehold, and the guy died, which is tragic. But I want to explain some facts here because there are just some untruths that the media is telling you. That's next here on The Morning Buzz. Okay, we're going to come back. I do want to address a text here on the text line. They talk a lot about the Roe versus Wade and the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So, Kat, the Constitution says that in all cases where it is silent, it is up to the states to develop their own legislation as it pertains to abortion. The states can do their own laws unless they are challenged and found unconstitutional in court. The federal statute doesn't matter if there is a separate law that says otherwise. You cannot like it, but that is the law. So I want to push back a little bit on this text here coming up in just a little bit. I'm going to explain what kind of federal statutes there are and the difference here between giving it to the states to make their laws and not working within the confines of federal statutes. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299. I have a packed 8 o'clock hour for you. Now, listen to this. There was a fight between two girls at Martin Luther King High School in California. It's in Riverside, California. Now, one girl towered over the other girl, and she was a transgender girl. So, the one born with a penis that led to the fight, the smaller girl didn't want to see it dangling around in the girl's bathroom. This is what led to the fight. The trans girl started throwing punches. Now, one student, her name is Megan Simpkins, she spoke out to the school board wanting to know why no one cares about the safety of female students. So there was a fight, and the smaller girl and the one without the penis didn't want to see the penis, and she said, look, I don't want to see that in the girl's bathroom. And then the trans girl started throwing some punches. So I want to talk about this because Megan Simpkins, she unloaded on her school board, and she gave an explosive speech after this giant trans girl assaulted a girl in the girls' locker room. So I want to talk about that coming up here in just a little bit. We are going to run through the New York City subway and, how this Marine choked out a homeless man who died. He choked him out because he was acting very disorderly. He was kind of going berserk on the subway. And what happened was multiple people tried to restrain this homeless man who was going completely berserk on the subway. So I do want to explain that. Also, a lot has changed since I've been in school. Most notably, our parents didn't have to go to school board meetings and ask the school board, hey, please don't provide porn and sexually explicit materials to students. So there's this woke school board who cuts off this mother, says that she can't talk anymore, and then her son steps in, saves the day, and just serves them a hot piping dose of reality. Has a spoon, opens up the mouth, shoves some reality in the mouths of these woke school board members. And I want to talk about that. Also, the Chicago Times, their ridiculous reporting of the City Council of Danville now making this a sanctuary city for the unborn. So Danville is actually working off of some federal statutes. Now, I did get a text in, and I want to address this. Before I get into today's stories, I want to address this text because it's important. Danville is working off of some federal statutes here. And I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an attorney. I got to get some help on this, but I did consult with some folks to try to figure out how the city of Danville can do this, being that there is such a thing called the Reproductive Health Act here in the state of Illinois. Now, a texter, very, very smart. This is awesome. Kat, the Constitution says that in all cases where it is silent, it is up to the states to develop their own legislation. The states can do their own laws unless they are challenged and found unconstitutional. Because I was saying that the Illinois Reproductive Health Act actually goes against these federal statutes. The federal statute doesn't matter, and this is according to the texter, if there is a separate state law that says otherwise. You cannot like it, but that's the law. Right now we have a Second Amendment, but Illinois has passed a law banning guns. The law stands until the Supreme Court of the United States says it's unconstitutional. It is the exact same thing you're railing about with the abortion issue. I'm not pro-abortion. My mother was raped and chose to give me life anyway, even though an abortion was an option. Now, what I want to talk about is that the overturning of Roe v. Wade and then throwing it back to the states doesn't necessarily mean that these federal state statutes are null and void or that they don't matter. These state statutes, the ones that the city of Danville are looking at here, because the ordinance, what it does, it specifically bans the mailing and shipping of abortion pills. Now, this is an ordinance that the city of Danville has. This doesn't, have a law where, it's for or against abortion. This is a federal state statute speaking to the shipping of abortion pills and abortion paraphernalia. This is a separate federal issue than whether or not we allow it or not. If you look at the case of Roe v. Wade, this is just whether or not abortion is legal or illegal in your state. What the city of Danville is doing is they're looking at a separate federal statute that looks at the nuts and bolts of how abortion is conducted in their city. So they're looking at a federal statute that prohibits abortion pills being shipped through the mail. Now, that's not outright banning abortion. That's just saying, hey, here in this city, we're going to recognize the federal statute that stands, because that's not the Supreme Court of the United States when they overturned Roe v. Wade. The issue wasn't about abortion pills. It wasn't about that federal statute. It was just the Roe v. Wade is just about abortion entirely. You can, as a state, allow abortion entirely. However, technically, you can't allow abortion pills to be shipped around in the state because there's a federal statute prohibiting that. So you have to work within the confines of federal statute. Now, what happens is if there is a federal statute that says that you cannot mail abortion pills via the U.S. mail or carrier, because I think that's, I'd have to look up the language here. I have the primary resources here of the statute. What happens is by de facto, essentially, that is going to outlaw abortion because these abortion clinics cannot get their materials, most likely, at all if they can't get them via the mail. Most likely they are getting these abortion pills shipped to their clinics, and that's how they're operating. Now, you could continue to operate an abortion clinic without doing it through the mail. You would just have to have the people operating that abortion clinic driving, picking up the abortion pills wherever they may be and driving them back to the abortion clinics. So it's a loophole. It's a loophole, folks, where we could start to see a rise in sanctuary cities. Going to talk more extensively about the city of Danville and how they have come out as pretty much a sanctuary city because of this ordinance that outright bans abortion pills in the mail. Or abortion paraphernalia. You cannot ship it through the mail. There is a separate federal statute than that of discussed in Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade just talks about allowing abortion. That's it. It doesn't talk about the procedures of how abortion is conducted. And the state of Illinois needs to act within the confines of standing federal statute. This has not been argued, or it has been argued before Supreme Courts, and a lot of these Supreme Courts in Texas, this federal statute, they side with the federal statute. They say that this stands, that this is a standing statute. But as of right now, it hasn't been taken down from the Supreme Court. So I got to explain more. But first, let's talk about it. I want to talk about the homeless man on the subway in New York. The victim's name, Jordan Neely. Now, the Marine, he's a veteran. Don't know his name. It's unknown at this time. If you guys find it, I would love for you to text it in. But according to a witness, Jordan Neely barged in on this train car. It's a subway in New York, and he started yelling at the rioters. The riders there. He was ready to die. He also was yelling that he had no food, that he didn't have drink, and that he didn't care if he was going to jail. So he was being very aggressive, screaming all of these things. He took off his jacket. It was a black jacket that he had, and he threw it down on the ground. Very aggressive. So there was a man aboard, and he was the 24-year-old Marine veteran, and he subdued Jordan Neely, and he placed him in a chokehold. Now, the Marine was questioned by police when the police got there, because he was holding him for like 15 minutes waiting for the police. So the Marine was questioned by police, but then he was later released. So the leftists, naturally, they're trying to set a narrative here. They do this all of the time. Quote, "An unhoused man was murdered." Unhoused, I love it. I don't know when the word homeless became offensive, but apparently it's offensive now. Unhoused is actually not all that accurate if you think about it, because not everybody lives in houses. Everybody has a home, right? Or some people have homes, some people don't. What about unapartmented? Homeless, not having a home, is an accurate word. When you say unhoused, it suggests that they are not in a house. But what about the unapartmented? You know what I mean? So there we go. Or that they had a house before. It's just not accurate. And this is the left, right? They're trying to rob us of accuracy. So they change homeless to the word unhoused, or houseless individuals, which I don't understand. Then, there's another narrative out there. It says that this was a crime that was racially motivated, that the victim was just a fun-loving Michael Jackson, because there's one video of him out there impersonating Michael Jackson. So they're saying he was just like a Michael Jackson impersonator. He was a great guy. No, actually, the guy had 42 arrests and an active warrant out for his arrest for felony assault. So they're saying that this is, George 2.0, George Floyd 2.0. The leftist media is treating it like this. And this guy went berserk, and this guy was choked out by a white man. But get this, multiple people were restraining Jordan Neely while they were waiting for the police. Among the multiple people who were holding down Jordan Neely while they were waiting for the police was a black man who held him for 15 minutes until the cop came. And I have a genuine question, and please, if you are watching on our Facebook Live or YouTube Live, comment, text in. What would you do in that situation? Would you be confident that you could restrain effectively a homeless man, a crazed homeless man who racked up 42 arrests for 15 minutes until the cops came, without choking him or without being more forceful, right? I mean, to hold somebody for 15 minutes is a long time. And I want to point this out as well. Since this incident that happened on the subway, there has been rises in protests, clashes with the New York Police Department. So the media telling half truths or just flat out lies is creating dangerous situations for officers and bystanders of these mass protests, of these clashes with the police. Why do you think the white dude is guilty when there were black and brown people involved in restraining the man as well? Do you believe race determines guilt? Does Jordan Neely's violent history matter? There have been New York Metro riders in the past who have alleged that he was violently threatening them or assaulting them in the past. He's been arrested 42 times. I think there were 4 arrests where he assaulted people, and then he had a standing warrant for felony assault. Yeah, you're dangerous. AOC's out there. She's tweeting this. Jordan Neely was murdered. You can't go around saying that word. He hasn't been charged, okay? But because Jordan was houseless, and she uses that word, houseless, or when did homeless become offensive? I don't know. And crying for food in a time when the city's raising rents and stripping services to militarize itself, while many in power demonize the poor, the murderer gets protected with passive headlines and no charges. It's disgusting. That's what she tweets out. You're disgusting, AOC. But look, I feel for a man who is poor. I feel for the homeless, served in soup kitchens. It is traumatic to see how many homeless people are in Bloomington Normal. Traumatic. And this guy, though, it doesn't take away the fact that just because he's poor and homeless doesn't change the fact that he has a violent history. He was unhinged and probably mentally ill. And not to mention AOC, she's sitting here talking about the raising rents. That's last time I checked your fault because you keep spending, spending, spending and voting for all of these bills that increase our spending. And what is that doing? That's inflating the market. That's driving up inflation. And the landlords, they've got bills too. And you know what? Maybe I shouldn't call them landlords anymore. Maybe I should start calling them home providers. If we're going to be changing language, maybe I'll just call landlords home providers. But, right, they have to raise their costs on rent because inflation and because of what you're doing at the federal level, AOC, by spending, 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 spending. So you're the problem. You're the reason why everybody's so poor. It's because you are rising the costs and taxes, and people can't afford to live anymore because of you. And not to mention, she's an elected representative and she's getting out there throwing terms around like murder. And there is a difference between murder, homicide, and manslaughter. There's criminally negligent homicide. There's involuntary manslaughter. There's all kinds of definitions legally. So AOC coming out and not knowing what she's talking about is just disgusting. Real quick, want to reiterate that this man had a warrant out for his arrest for felony assault. Felony assault in the state of New York is defined as assault in the first degree occurs when you are intentionally trying to cause serious physical injury to another person using a dangerous weapon or instrument. This is a serious violent felony, which is a Class C felony in the state of New York and can be punished by up to 15 years in jail. This guy was not a good dude. In fact, we have Eric Adams right here talking about AOC and how she shouldn't have come out and said that this is murder. I'm going to play it here for you, and you can watch Eric Adams and what he says about AOC on Facebook Live or on YouTube. Let's take a listen, shall we?
Is really hitting a nerve is because this man appeared to be having mental health issues. This is something that you've talked a lot about, but I want to read to you. This is a response from the comptroller, Brad Lander. He tweeted this: New York City is not Gotham. We must not become a city where mentally ill human can be choked to death by a vigilante without consequence. There's also this from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Democratic Congresswoman. She said, Jordan Neely was murdered. What is your response to what they're saying here?
Well, both the Congresswoman and the controller is a citywide leader. And I don't think that's very responsible at the time where we're still investigating the situation. Let's let the DA conduct his investigation with the law enforcement officials. To really interfere with that is not the right thing to do. And I'm going to be responsible and allow them to do their job and allow them to determine exactly what happened here.
Here we go, Eric Adams. Look, Eric Adams said it, not me. Why are you coming out and saying things like this, AOC? Look, one more thing I want to point out before I take a break here. AOC, I'm just curious. Would you house somebody like Jordan Neely in your home? Probably not. You want to know why? Because he's dangerous. And you're sitting there saying, we shouldn't be treating homeless people like this. Okay, open up your door. Let him go live in your house. I guarantee you, these people, they're always not in my backyard. Okay, I am going to be back. We are going to talk about this transgender student who threw punches at a much smaller girl in a bathroom because the smaller girl didn't want to see a penis in the girl's bathroom. Yes, this happened in California. And Megan Simpkins, she's a student who spoke about this issue at a school board meeting, and she's wanting to know why nobody cares about the safety of female students. So I'll be back with that story next. Okay, we're going to come back and we're going to dig into the story that I've got here about this fight that happened between two girls at this Martin Luther King High School in Riverside, California. Now, one girl towered over this other girl, and she was a transgender girl, so one that was born with a penis, and she was the one who was he was the one throwing punches around. And the smaller girl didn't want to see it dangling around in the girl's bathroom, and the trans girl the trans guy, I guess it's a guy, right, trans girl, started throwing punches. Now, one student, her name's Megan, she spoke out at a school board meeting, and she wants to know why nobody cares about the safety of female students. And I should note, there was some confusion on whether or not this assailant was trans or not. Now, one media outlet identified her as trans. Another media outlet referred to the student's preferred pronouns and wanted to hide the fact that the student was trans. So they were trying to say that this was a girl, but he's trans, and they were trying to use the preferred pronouns and trying to just report the story as if this was a girl. Um, but a high school senior, she unloaded on her school board in an explosive speech just a few days after they allowed this giant trans student to assault a girl in the girls' locker room. And I can't wait to play the speech for her, but she wants to know why a biological man, one who's whipping his her junk out, was allowed in the high school girls' bathroom. And this just is an incredible story. Uh, yeah. So we'll talk about that. Also, do want to talk about the city of Danville becoming a sanctuary city for the unborn. Now, people are saying that this federal state statute doesn't apply because Roe v. Wade gives it up to the states entirely. That's not true. You still have to work within the confines of federal statutes as it pertains to the procedure of abortion. And there are federal statutes that say that it's prohibited to use or to mail abortion paraphernalia, tools, or chemical medications via the U.S. postal mail. So there are state statutes that suggest this or say this, and you have to work within the confines of federal statute. Even if you are a state that allows abortion, you have to work within the confines of the states or of the federal statutes that tell you how you're supposed to do this, and how abortion is to be conducted. And if there is a federal statute that is out there that says that you cannot ship abortion pills via the mail, then you have to abide by that as a state and work your laws within the confines of that. So the tricky thing is here, and this is just government being totally stupid, I guess. And honestly, these people are stupid, where they don't check these things out before they start to draft all of this stupid legislation at the state level. So they just create legislation like it's candy, and they don't really check the federal statutes or work within the confines of the federal statutes that are out there. And they just kind of piece together as woke nonsense as they possibly can, and they piece it together and they throw it out there, and they totally disregard what federal statute says. Now, it is up to the states whether or not you allow abortion in your state. That's pretty much what Roe v. Wade says. The overturning of Roe v. Wade says that we're going to give it to the states to decide if they're going to allow abortion within the state. And you can kind of mess with the parameters if you want abortion up to 6 weeks, if the 6-week heartbeat ban or the heartbeat bills, right? This is just allowing abortion in your state. Now, that's what Roe v. Wade does, but it doesn't talk about the procedures or the way abortion is to be conducted. So the cool thing about these two federal statutes that say, hey, you can't ship abortion pills in the mail, is that effectively ceases operations of all abortion clinics, because they rely on, or at least they heavily rely on, the abortion pills being shipped to them, or the abortion paraphernalia, the forceps, all of it. They rely on that being shipped to the clinic. they can still conduct and operate abortions, and operate as an abortion clinic, but what they'll have to do in order to be compliant with the federal state statute, or with the federal statute here, is they have to drive, pick up their paraphernalia, and then bring it back to the abortion clinic. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for joining me. I will be getting into the the city of Danville. So they've got a population of like 30,000 people. It's in East Central Illinois. It's about an hour and a half from here. I want to get into this because the Chicago Times, of course, they're doing very liberal reporting on this. They're like, here's how they frame it. With a wave of recent medical abortion court rulings in national spotlight, the city council in downstate Danville narrowly approved a controversial ordinance that bans the mailing and shipping of abortion pills, despite repeated warnings from civil liberties experts and state leaders that the measure violates Illinois law. Okay, people are going to come out and they're going to say, well, it's up to the states, overturning Roe v. Wade. Yes, it is up to the states. What people don't understand is that this ordinance that Danville has is in compliance with federal statute that talks about the procedures of how you're supposed to conduct abortions in the United States. There's federal statutes that say that it is prohibited to ship abortion paraphernalia, whether that be forceps or chemicals or pills, via the U.S. Postal Service. You cannot use U.S. mail carriers to ship these kind of materials. And here's the thing. The overturning of Roe v. Wade gives the whole question of abortion back to the states. How are you going to allow abortion in your state, or are you not? And are you going to set parameters like Texas, the 6-week, the heartbeat bill? At what point are you going to allow abortion? It's the overarching question of abortion that is thrown back to the states. However, there is existing federal statutes that say you cannot, it is prohibited to ship abortion pills via the U.S. mail. You can't do that via these federal statutes. Those federal statutes are not Roe v. Wade. They are separate from the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade just throws the question back to the states to decide whether or not they're going to allow abortion overall in their state. Doesn't take these away. Now, here's the thing. That doesn't necessarily mean that abortion is outlawed. However, by de facto, a lot of these abortion clinics are going to have a hard time operating because they rely on their shipments of abortion pills, of abortion paraphernalia to be shipped to their clinics. So if they aren't getting those shipments, it's going to be very hard for them to operate. So what Illinois has done with the Reproductive Health Act, making abortion legal up to 9 months, I don't know exactly what's in the Reproductive Health Act. Basically, it's abortion to the max, man. That's what Illinois has passed with this Illinois Reproductive Health Act. And what Illinois did is that they completely ignored, the legislators who created that act ignored federal statutes that say, hey, procedurally, you have to not allow abortion pills to be in the mail. They ignored that federal statute and they created the Reproductive Health Act. So what Danville is doing is they are coming out and they're saying, hey, we are going to be a sanctuary city for the unborn. And this is an ordinance that bans the mailing and shipping of abortion pills because we want to be in compliance with this federal statute. So this is really interesting. I'm going to get into the nuts and bolts of this coming up in just a little bit. But like I said, I wanted to talk about this story. This is incredible. She just completely unloads. Her name is Megan Simpkins. Now, she wasn't a student involved in this fight at Martin Luther High School in Riverside, California. Now, it's very unclear when this story first came out, there was some confusion as to whether this assailant in this bathroom, this girl's bathroom at a high school, was a man or a woman, because there were media outlets that were identifying her as trans, but then there was another media outlet who used the student's preferred pronouns and ignored the fact that this man was trans and he was identifying as a female. So bottom line, there was a girl with a penis, a man who was identifying as a girl in the bathroom, and there was another girl, a much smaller girl, who didn't want to see it dangling around in the girl's bathroom. It dangling around. And then what happened? The trans guy started throwing some punches. So Megan Simpkins, she spoke out, and she wants to know why nobody cares about the female students in the school and why they don't care about the safety of female students. So I'm going to play this clip for you here. Let's take a listen, shall we?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and only ladies and gentlemen it is and shall always be. I am an 18-year-old high school student and wanted to take this time to bring to your attention the current issue with biological men claiming they are women and in turn truly believing that they are entitled to use women's spaces. There was an incident within our district that occurred recently regarding a transgender woman who really is a biological man having an altercation with a young woman at MLK High School. It was infuriating when I had seen the video on social media, but what was detrimental to this is the fact that this man is and has been using the women's restroom and locker room. Firstly, the question we must address is why are we affirming the mental confusion of this boy and putting the safety of women in jeopardy by allowing mentally confused men to use the women's spaces? Of course, any male who claims he is a woman will accept it, but what about the women? What about the true girls like myself who are female down to our DNA? Why don't we ever get a say in whether or not we are comfortable with this? The truth is, we aren't. The majority of us aren't, and yet nothing has been done to protect the safety of these women. I will conclude with this. It all starts with you. You are in charge of the safety of us women and the kids of our parents. So please do something about it. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. Yes. So Megan, she wants to know why a biological man, one who likes whipping her junk out in the girls' locker room, is allowed. She wants to know why. Megan, I mean, just incredible. I'm speechless. That was a great speech that she gave, and she just confronted the school board. You know, and of course, the answer that she's probably going to get from the school board educators and a lot of her peers is that she's transphobic. Yeah. The answer should be, what the answer should be for the school board is to apologize profusely and offer their resignations for failing these students. Should never be where we have kids assaulting men, assaulting women, young men assaulting young women in bathrooms. But it's 2023, and that's the world we live in. They're just going to sit there and call this young girl a transphobe, and they won't apologize. They won't offer their resignations for failing the students, but that's the world we live in. Okay. We are going to come back. I've got to take a break. We're going to come back, and I want to unpack another school board meeting that happened. These are getting really there's a lot of them. There's another school board meeting where a son actually saves the day and comes in after the school board silences a mother who's trying to say, hey, I don't want porn in my schools, and please don't show my kid, provide my kid pornography. And this one kid, he's the son of the mother here. He steps up and he says, look, this is not providing educational value. And if we were to Google this on our school classrooms, it would be flagged. We wouldn't be able to watch pornography on the school computers. So why is it allowed in these books? I'm going to unpack it here on the Morning Buzz next. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Be sure to like and share the video out with your friends, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. It is a Friday. Very excited for this Friday. We are going to be back. It is Cinco de Mayo Day. Are you guys getting tacos somewhere? Let me know in the comments. We'll be back in just about like 4 minutes, something like that. folks, Hunter Biden has plenty of money for crack. He has plenty of money for hookers. He has plenty of money for illegal guns. He's got plenty of money for mansions, luxury cars. He has plenty of money for high-profile lawyers. He makes $500,000 a pop on his ridiculous, laughable crack doodles. And Hunter makes millions on no-show jobs in Ukraine. But Hunter, somehow, he doesn't have money to give to his own daughter. That's the kind of people we're working with here, folks, on the Morning Buzz. My name's Kat Peterson. Thanks so much for joining me. Today's Cinco de Mayo. Are you going to get some tacos or something today? Tacos and tequila. Tacos and tequila. We are going to be talking here a little bit about the Danville story, the city of Danville now becoming a sanctuary city for the unborn. There's an ordinance that they passed that bans the mailing of abortion paraphernalia, such as abortion pills, in the city of Danville. And the reason why they passed this ordinance is because it aligns closely with a federal statute that's out there. And I want to talk about that here coming up in just a little bit. But first, let's talk about this story. A woke school board cuts off a mom, and her son comes in and saves the day and just hammers them with reality. Now, when I was in school, this never happened, where parents would have to show up and ask the school board politely, hey, don't provide porn or other sexual materials to my kids. But now we live in a time where that's a norm, I guess, where parents have to do this. And, I'm going to play this clip here for us. And there's some context missing here. I don't know what the specific issue was, what book it was, what she was commenting about, but I believe that the story is here. The focus is her son saving the day, and the point that he made about it is huge. So let's talk about this. Here is the video. If you're watching on Facebook Live, YouTube, take a listen. Here we go.
I didn't use all my 3 minutes at my first comment. So I would just like to say that
it's one. I'm sorry. It's one. You have one chance at your 3 minutes.
that
What do you want to say?
I just want to say that if you as a student were to Google any of these things,
Jacob Bennick, if this is Google on our Chromebooks, typed on our Chromebooks, searched on our Chromebooks, it's immediately flagged. You block us from consuming this content on our Chromebooks because it's not something children should be consuming in a school environment, or frankly at all. But then you leave it available to us in our libraries for students to freely read. That's a double standard that I don't think should be in schools. None of this should be in our schools, and we're not gaining any educational learning. There's no educational value to any of this in our libraries. I think you guys understand that. This should not be in our libraries. This should not be available to students.
There you go. There he is. He's just telling it like it is, folks. So that's the thing is this, the dude's right. The kid's right. If a student were to Google, and I'm just going to be using the phrases, the terms that are in your kids' books on the school library shelves right now. So don't get all upset when I use this kind of language, because if the kids are reading it in a book at school, then it's got to be safe for radio, right? If a student were to Google, quote, tasting yourself, or quote, proper techniques in giving a hand job, or quote, whether to spit or use lube while performing anal sex, the student would be blocked from viewing it on the school computers. Yet, if a progressive author writes about it in a book, especially if that progressive author checks off all of these boxes for the left's preferred marginalized groups, right? The more boxes this author checks off, the better the book is. Not only is it appropriate for students, but it's actually recommended reading. The feeling among these grown adults who determine what your child is taught is that a student can't be expected to learn how to be tolerant of other genders without reading a graphic novel that discusses things as, quote, vagina slime. And I took that from the gender queer book that I know has been in school libraries. So don't try to gaslight me and tell me that it hasn't been in school libraries. But, that's the thing. These teachers, they think that kids won't be tolerant of other genders if they're not reading literal porn. Like, how does pornography and me reading this stuff in these graphic novels make me more tolerant. So, look, and if a parent has a problem with it, the parent has a problem with it. We shouldn't demonize parents. We should be demonizing the Democrat Party, who have a frantic obsession with looking to sexualize students at every opportunity while they hold their audience captive in school. Why is the Democrat Party so obsessed with looking to sexualize kids? Shout out to this young kid for coming to his mom's defense. Okay, let's move on to Danville here on the other side. I got to take a break, and then we're going to wrap up the show for your Friday. Love Fridays. It's 8:51 here on a Friday morning. Temperature right now, it's 53 degrees and sunny. Hey, please like, share, be a part of the conversation. So yeah, we've been talking about a lot of stuff this morning, specifically the Danville story. I've tried to unpack that for you. We also talked a lot about this New York City subway thing. I've got some breaking news on the other side, and we're gonna wrap up with some good news, I think, to end your Friday. All right, I'm going to address this, Roger. Every day, the actual news gets ignored by this program, and the focus is on other people's genitals. This station hates people of the United States. Do you know that several people have been convicted of seditious conspiracy related to January 6th? Are you aware that the Supreme Court is being bought by right wing billionaires as the court decides to deny people voting rights and women the ability to decide their own health care? Cities will probably applaud this one. Florida passed a law. I can't read the whole comment here. Let's see. Florida. Yeah, I can't read the whole comment because it doesn't allow me to. But yeah, Roger, pal, this is the real news. You want to know why this is the real news? Because no other legacy media is talking about this kind of stuff. And we aren't legacy media here at Cities 92.9. I'm not going to be talking about the stuff at January 6th. Did you know that there was a man, his name was Jacob Chansley, and he was held in federal prison for nearly 2 years for, quote, criminal trespassing, and he was on video being escorted by Capitol Police through the halls of the Capitol building. Did you know that he was held there in federal prison for trespassing, even though he really wasn't even trespassing because he was being ushered in and guided by Capitol Police there on January 6th? Did you know that? The Supreme Court being bought by right wing billionaires. My God, this. Oh gosh, did you know that Governor J.B. Pritzker is being bought by Planned Parenthood and SSIs and SSR? Did you know that he's being bought by Big Pharma and that the entire government is being bought out by Big Pharma and by the WHO, by United Nations, and that they're all being bought? Come on. I mean, being bought by the Supreme Court, right wing billionaires. Cities will probably applaud this one. Oh, the Florida stuff. I deny people voting rights. What do you mean, deny people voting rights? Asking people to have an ID on them? That's denying people voting rights? Okay. Uh, who? Who is not, who can't get an ID, Roger? I don't know what you're talking about. Who can't get an ID in the United States? 309-451-9299. You can text in, be a part of the show. You can also see me live in the studio. I'm going to wrap up the show today. Here with some kind of cool stories. Now, is your car like your second home? So I don't know about y'all, but my car, I've got a truck. It's like my second home, I'm telling you. I'm always in that thing. And I've got all kinds of like snacks. I'm a big Cheez-It girl. Love Cheez-Its. So I keep Cheez-Its right there next to my car, or right next to my passenger seat, and I tend to snack on those. But a new survey says that parents with school-aged kids actually found that 73% of them consider their car to be an extension of their home, making memories, spending time with their family, sharing meals together, were all the reasons why they considered their car to have a homey feel. Maybe that's because the top reason parents use their car is to drive their kids to like activities like soccer practice. Also, another study coming out: is the internet good for your brain? This study says the answer is probably yes. I don't know about that, but researchers here in this study, they surveyed like 18,000 adults between the ages of 50 and 65 for 8 years, and they found that who never logged on were far more likely to develop like dementia than regular web surfers. So if you I think that, I don't know if it's necessarily the internet, maybe it's just like reading keeps you from getting dementia. Those that were on the net for 8 or more hours a week showed the best brain health overall. I would imagine that it has less to do with it reading on the internet or like internet, and more to do with reading and just keeping your brain active and researching and kind of reading things on the internet and using resources, right? If you don't use that part of your brain in reading, then of course it's going to go. All right, well, that's going to do it for us here on the Morning Buzz. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I really do appreciate you listening every morning, and I do really mean it when I say I love you. Today is going to be a gorgeous day. It's actually going to be a little bit warmer today than it was yesterday, high of 78. Be sure to catch all of our weekend programming, and I'll talk with you again on Monday morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. Bye-bye. Love you.